what are some of the unique challenges of creating software in an environment that has a rapidly expanding, changing landscape for paid family and medical leave?
Yeah, each leave law that we see, each PFML law has a unique approach to payments. And there's so many detailed nuances to those approaches that aren't obvious at quick glance. So, you might think of something just, well, what are they supposed to be paid? What's the percentage? It seems really obvious. But when you dig into it, there's all these little nuances to each one that, have to do with how's the benefit year calculation? When does the benefit calculation start? When do the state average weekly wage changes impact the employer or impact the rates, and it has all kinds of different impacts down the line. So while we see states every now and then they'll look to a state that came before them and duplicate something, more often than not, every state has a lot of uniqueness. So there might be something about the calculation that they'll duplicate from another state, but most of it, they like to kind of cut their own path. So we see a lot of uniqueness. And every time there is that uniqueness, then of course our software evolves accordingly.
Can you give some examples, like maybe New York or Massachusetts, because those are two of the kind of the first that kicked off into this space, or at least that more broadly that I'm aware of. I'm a Mass resident, so very comfortable there.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, so those are two great examples. So starting with the easiest, New York. So the way that New York works is you have the base benefit is calculated by using the employee's salary, and an employee receives 67% of their average weekly wage, up to a maximum of a certain percentage of the state average weekly wage. So that's pretty straightforward. Just take a straight percentage. Delaware, coming online in January, is also similar. It uses a single tier calculation model. But after New York, other than Delaware, all of the other states have a multi-tier benefit calculation model. So you mentioned Massachusetts. Massachusetts uses a two-tier benefit calculation model. So where that works is the employee receives a percentage of their average weekly wage up to a percentage of the state's average weekly wage, up to a maximum amount. So an employee would receive 80% of their average weekly wage up to a threshold, and then after that, they would receive 50% of their state average weekly wage up to another maximum. So what that means, the way that benefit calculation works out, is that for lower earners, they end up receiving an overall higher percentage of their pay, and it decreases over time. So not that higher earners are receiving less money, but they're receiving an overall less percentage of their weekly wage. And other states have adopted a really similar approach to, Washington state actually was before, and then we've got Massachusetts and Colorado, Oregon, Connecticut, all really similar. So we thought we had the single tier, we had the double tier. What more could there be? And then Minnesota came around and said,
of course,
triple tier. So Minnesota has a three-tier benefit calculation model, which functions really similarly, but it has just that third threshold. So we'll see what comes next. Maybe our next state will have a four-tier benefit calculation model, or maybe we'll do something totally different.